In 1946, Douglas Aircraft introduced what would become one of the most refined piston-engine airliners in history, the DC-6. Arriving on the heels of the DC-4, it represented the pinnacle of piston-powered passenger transport, combining lessons learned from wartime transport aircraft with peacetime airline demands. Designed under the supervision of Chief Engineer Ed Heinemann and lead aerodynamicist Carl Cover, the DC-6 featured a pressurized cabin capable of cruising at 21,000 feet, a marked improvement over earlier propliners. Its Wright R3350 duplex Cyclone engines, producing 2,500 horsepower each in early variants, allowed ranges of over 4,000 miles fully loaded, enabling non-stop transcontinental flights and opening the door to international long-haul routes. By the late 1940s, American Airlines, United, and TWA had already started integrating DC-6s into their fleets. The aircraft offered unparalleled reliability, with in-service dispatch rates exceeding 95% by 1948, a figure that surpassed almost every contemporary piston airliner. Passenger comfort became a hallmark of the type. Wider seats, individual reading lamps, and the option for sleeper configurations on long-haul flights. Crew efficiency was also a priority. Cockpit instrumentation was advanced for the time, reducing pilot load on long legs. The DC-6 even influenced airport infrastructure. Runways were extended at key hubs like Chicago Midway, New York LaGuardia, and Los Angeles Airport to accommodate the airliner's higher takeoff weights and longer landing rolls. In 1947, the DC-6B variant debuted, offering a strengthened airframe, improved fuel capacity, and an increased takeoff weight of 107,000 pounds. Airlines were able to operate non-stop coast-to-coast services that previously required intermediate stops. For Pan American, the DC-6C, adapted for convertible passenger cargo service, enabled flexible operations in the Caribbean and South America. By 1950, over 300 DC-6s had been delivered worldwide, and the type had become the backbone of North American and European transatlantic services, achieving a balance of efficiency, comfort, and performance that seemed unassailable. Yet even as the DC-6 achieved operational mastery, the horizon was shifting. In 1949, Boeing had quietly accelerated its development of the 367-80 prototype, which would evolve into the 707. The jet engine, long a military curiosity, began to capture the imagination of airline executives, particularly in terms of speed and prestige. By 1952, British Airways and Air France were experimenting with early Comet designs, reinforcing the perception that the future belonged to jets. For airlines, the choice was no longer purely about efficiency or reliability. Passenger expectations were changing. Travelers wanted faster, sleeker aircraft, symbols of post-war modernity. The DC-6, for all its engineering excellence, suddenly appeared conventional. Operationally, the DC-6 had fully matured. Maintenance schedules were standardized and spare parts logistics were optimized. Fuel consumption for long-haul flights was approximately 1.2 gallons per mile per engine, remarkably efficient for the era, and the airliner could carry 50 to 70 passengers depending on configuration. Crews praised its predictable handling characteristics, and pilots who trained on the DC-4 reported smooth transitions. The type's robustness allowed airlines to expand into thinner markets without fear of operational disruption, a flexibility jets would initially struggle to match. Despite these advantages, by 1953, the industry narrative had shifted. Airlines began evaluating the trade-off between proven piston performance and the allure of jet speed. Marketing departments emphasized time saved over fuel efficiency. The DC-6 could cover New York to Los Angeles in just under 8 hours, but a jet capable of doing it in 6 was now a headline-grabbing prospect. Capital budgets that had been earmarked for DC-6 expansions were diverted to jet deposits. Orders for the Super DC-6 variants, which would have increased range and payload slightly, were reduced or canceled entirely in favor of anticipated jet fleets. Douglas engineers understood the predicament. Flight test data from Edwards Air Force Base demonstrated that the DC-6 could operate from virtually every major U.S. airport, handle crosswinds up to 25 knots, and maintain cruise altitudes above 21,000 feet even in summer conditions. Yet airlines were less concerned with operational ceilings than with market perception. By 1955, the DC-6 found itself relegated primarily to secondary routes, charter operations, and freight conversions. Pan Am shifted its flagship transatlantic services to early jet contracts, and TWA began planning for Boeing 707 integration as early as 1956. Passenger surveys from the mid-1950s confirmed the irony. The DC-6 remained among the most comfortable and reliable aircraft in the sky. Complaints about engine noise and vibration were minimal. In-flight service reliability exceeded 98%, and the aircraft's pressurization system allowed flights over the Rocky Mountains and Alps with ease. Yet, despite peak relevance, the DC-6 became invisible in public consciousness. Aviation magazines hailed jet-age marvels, while propliners, even perfected ones, were increasingly framed as relics. The DC-6 did not decline due to technical shortcomings. It was simply out of sync with the moment. By 1957, Douglas had begun offering cargo and convertible DC-6 variants to salvage residual market potential. Airlines continued to operate them on domestic and regional routes where jets could not yet economically or logistically compete. Military contracts, including the U.S. Air Force C-118 Liftmaster program, extended the aircraft's operational relevance well into the 1960s. Still, the narrative was clear. The DC-6 had peaked at precisely the wrong time. Excellence alone could no longer guarantee market attention. The economics of jet adoption further shifted priorities. Boeing, by offering favorable financing on early 707 deliveries starting in 1955, created a situation where delaying a jet purchase posed a competitive risk. Airlines that hesitated risked losing premium traffic to early adopters. Time-sensitive passengers, including corporate executives and high-yield tourists, were migrating toward airlines that could guarantee the shortest transit times. The DC-6's performance, cruising at 300 miles per hour with a range of 4,000 miles, remained sufficient from an operational standpoint, but the metric that now defined success was speed above all else. Airlines began calculating revenue per flight hour rather than per mile flown, effectively penalizing even highly efficient piston operations. Advertising reinforced the shift. Pan Am's 1955 campaign for its upcoming 707 routes highlighted jet speed across the Atlantic, emphasizing novelty, power, and futuristic design. Contrasting visuals of the polished Comet fuselage or the sleek Boeing 707 prototype against the familiar curves of the DC-6 cabin made the piston airliner look dated. Boarding imagery, featuring glossy new jet interiors and cabin crews in sharply tailored uniforms, underscored the association between jets and progress. The DC-6, despite flawless in-flight reliability, was increasingly invisible in public perception. Operationally, airlines faced new pressures. Runway and terminal upgrades became urgent to accommodate jet operations, forcing airlines to prioritize capital spending on infrastructure over piston enhancements. Timetables were recalculated. An 8-hour DC-6 transatlantic flight now seemed incompatible with a business schedule oriented around a 6-hour jet service. Maintenance routines, while efficient for the DC-6, could not counteract the market's obsession with speed. Airline boards recognized that even perfect reliability could not overcome a perception of obsolescence. Douglas attempted to highlight the DC-6's continuing advantages. Flight manuals emphasized a maximum payload of 28,000 pounds and a cruising ceiling of 21,000 feet with pressurized cabins, enabling nonstop New York-Los Angeles or Chicago-Paris segments without intermediate stops. Crew training materials reinforced its ease of handling, and operational dispatch reliability remained at 96 to 98%, superior to early jet test runs. Yet these facts mattered less than headlines or promotional brochures. By the early 1960s, DC-6s were largely gone from headline routes, replaced by 707s and DC-7s. Yet airlines like SAS, KLM, and Swissair retained them on shorter or less demanding routes where reliability and runway flexibility mattered more than speed. Many were converted to freighters, DC-6B and DC-6A variants, carrying up to 28,000 pounds. Flying Tiger Line, Pan Am Cargo, Air France Cargo, and the U.S. Air Force employed them for mail, equipment, troop transport, and logistics. Smaller carriers, including BUA and Northeast Airlines, used DC-6s for charter services, benefiting from low operating costs and proven reliability. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines required less specialized maintenance than early jets, making it ideal for regions without advanced infrastructure. Even as turboprops like the Lockheed 188 Electra emerged, the DC-6 remained valuable for payload, range, and accessibility where jets were uneconomical. By the mid-1970s, the DC-6 had quietly transitioned into a durable workhorse for cargo, charter, and military operations.